The quote of the day. The quote. And this may sound easy, but it's not. Train your mind to be stronger than your feelings.
I can't look back, it's too late now. My days are hours and I don't know how. But I believe the great is still yet to come. I won't stop fighting, man, until I'm done.
Good morning and welcome to the 28th Breakfast Ball. I am your host, Bob Cardea. And to my left and to your right is DMG, David Gibson Jr. Welcome. Good morning.
Yeah, good morning. Good morning. Thank you.
Yeah, so a couple quick things. Remember, if you were one of the first 10 people to write I love the breakfast ball in the comments section, we have a raffle. Congratulations to Mr. Convery last week who won the Starbucks gift card. So each week we're giving out a Starbucks gift card. Please, if you like what we're doing, subscribe. And remember, if you get anything out of this podcast and you go on to become rich and famous, we get 10% for sure. Anyway, good morning, David. How are you?
Yeah, doing good. A little sleepy, but doing good.
Yeah, well, the interesting folks, we always preach on being positive and staying in the present and don't look back, look forward. We're sitting in the somewhat damp breakfast ball studio this morning. Apparently, the sub pump for the studio and the backup system both did not work. So the carpets that we're sitting on right now are all saturated, would you say?
Yeah, a little more than damp.
Yeah, a little bit more than damp. So but we persevere here at the Breakfast Ball, folks. We do not let things like basement floods.
We're not missing a week.
No, we're not missing a week for sure. So today we're going to talk about what I've learned about people and what I've learned about teaching. So I was going to kick this off with how we got to be where we are today, which is interesting, right? At least I find it interesting. We are the oldest golf school in New Jersey. I guess my father started teaching in 1968, and we incorporated as the South Jersey Golf Schools in 1980. So next year will be our 45th year of continuous operation, which is funny because while we were getting ready to film this, my phone was buzzing, like literally, David, right?
Right before.
The second we started filming this episode, my watch starts to buzz, and it's Mitchell Haskell. And his dad and my dad, way back in the day, got together and they teamed up. And when we initially incorporated as the South Jersey Golf Schools, they were our home base. So, Mitchell, I'll call you back later, I promise. I promise. Happy birthday, by the way. Yeah, it was his birthday yesterday, actually. Shout out, for sure. All right. Okay, so the quote of the day. Did I do the quote of the day yet?
No.
The quote of the day. The quote. And this may sound easy, but it's not. Train your mind to be stronger than your feelings. And that works both personally and professionally. So I could tell you, keeping the South Jersey Golf School, and any business for that matter, in business for 44 years, is a job. It's a task. Now, we love what we do here. Mm-hmm. Trust me. I mean, I wouldn't do it if I didn't love it. And we've all talked about, we're not desk people. Unfortunately, we don't sit at desks. I can't sit at a desk. I tried. It just doesn't work, right?
And computers aren't your forte.
No, technology's not my forte. Although I'm getting better with it. And you guys give me a hard time, but I work at it anyway.
We all have our strengths and
I
weaknesses.
do, right? This is my time to shine right now. So with that said, the golf schools. We started. We incorporated in 1980, and we started working on it. And I guess right up until about 1997, we were sailing along pretty good. I mean, good times, bad times, economy, cyclical. Like right now, the economy, golf went down for the first time in a while this last quarter. And, obviously when there's not as much discretionary income and interest or inflation as high as it is, businesses like ours typically, take a little bit of a hit. But, we never let that stop us. I mean, we budget in for good times and bad times. But I guess my father was diagnosed with, by the way, he was never sick a day in his life. Never had an IV, never been in a hospital, nothing. And then in I guess it was New Year's Day, 1997, yeah, he turned a little jaundice. So we took him to the emergency room, and nothing, thought nothing of it. And they did all the scans, and they could find nothing. So turns out there was a little bit of cancer in his bile duct next to his pancreas. And it turned out to be pancreatic cancer, which, for those of you who don't know, um, it's something like 98% of the people that are diagnosed with pancreatic cancer are dead within 6 months. Liver cancer and pancreatic cancer are the absolute worst. So they went in and did a whole Whipple procedure, and it looked like it worked. Like it looked like he might be one of the 3% of people that live. I guess after that surgery, if you can make it a full year without a reoccurrence, your chances go up. And if you can make it past 2 years, your chances of living are great.
Yeah.
So he made it like a week or two short of a full year, and it came back. And when it came back, it was awful. So, but the man fought hard. I mean, he lived every day like like he used to tell me. And I read it one day as a quote on one of our shorts by Og Mandino: is live each day as if it's your last. So, with that said, now I'm sitting in a golf school in a rough economy, and we owned what was Somerton Springs at that time, is now known as Big Swing Golf Center, and the staff is all looking at me. Are you going to continue teaching your dad's I don't know, footsteps? Yeah, not shadows, right?
Yeah.
Footsteps. So I decided, okay, I want to give it a go, and I was talking to some of the guys, and we were blessed at that point. Like, Dick Smith and his brother Tom Smith worked with us a little bit in our first year, and Dick ended up being the president of the PGA. Then we had a guy that was on tour from 69 to 73. He had actually one top 10 finish on the PGA Tour. He was on our staff.
Nice.
And then we had Frankie Carmen, who was a PGA Teacher of the Year. These guys were all on our staff. So I'm like, okay, I'm in my 20s at that point, so I'm thinking, hey, it might be a little bit intimidating. But so I decided I'm going to teach. And I talked to the other guys, and I'm like, I'm going to be a really good teacher. That's what I decided. So I get what was called the Mitsubishi Swing Trainer, which is like first generation, like really simple, like a TrackMan type of thing.
Okay.
So it came in a case, and I bring it out to the range. And I had a background in club fitting. I was one of the top, I guess, five salesmen. I got for Somerton Springs in golf club sales. So I did a lot of fittings and sales. And at that time, Somerton was one of the top 10 golf retailers in the entire nation. So I bring out all this stuff. I start talking about my first students, effective lofted impact, degree of spine angle, moment of inertia, and I do all this analysis. And then I realized after about, a few months that I was just awful. I mean, people were just confused as hell. Like, it's never great to show somebody how smart you are, right? Yeah, and it's much better to try to help them out. So now David teaches with me, and Richie, Richie's at a wedding this weekend. I'm not gonna lie to you. He's not on the PGA Tour this weekend, although we're hoping he gets there. No, I decided I was terrible. So I went and I started doing a lot of research on how people learn. And my father, in addition to being a golf teaching professional and a professional motivational speaker, he also had his doctorate in education. So my father had a doctorate in education. My mom was a school teacher. My ex-wife was a teacher. So there's all this teaching crap lying around. About not crap. I'm sorry. What I had to learn, and I discovered, like, people learn, physically. Some people learn by reading. Some people by hearing by doing. So, and then I read something about colors, and that was in marketing, like Cleveland, Roger Cleveland, the wedges. They used to make irons, and they probably still do. I don't know. That's bad for Cleveland if we don't know if they still make irons. I know they make wedges.
Oh, they
still.
definitely. Oh, true. I know they make wedges.
Yes.
Irons, I'm not sure. Yeah.
But they made a wedge in the late 80s, early 90s called the VAS. And it was like an alien looking thing. And the back had a piece of their logo, but it was in purple. And I remember asking the salesperson, why are they using purple? And he listed like the 3 or 4 colors that sales signs are always put in. Because it draws your mind right to it.
Yeah.
So, like, when I do lessons, a lot of times I'll use multicolored markers, and because we always write your homework out for you, or I'll draw a picture, like, good golf ball, bad golf ball, that kind of thing. And you know what I found? I no longer talk about all those technical terms. When I talk about posture, I talk about gorilla. When I
Grill
talk about
stance.
growth stance, when I talk about grip, I talk about toothpaste.
Hot dog in the bun.
Hot dog in a bun.
Yeah,
Yeah,
like
I just tell a ton of dumb stories, and I found I was in an airport in Dallas once. Someone tapped me on the shoulder and said toothpaste. I was in Las Vegas once in an airport, and someone said, "Hey, gorilla." And I've had people walk up to me all over the place and say hi to me and tell me, oh, I remember this, I remember that, and they're all dumb stories. But people remember dumb stories. So at the end of the day, in my teaching, I've learned that if you keep it educational, fun, right, and your dumb stories, people remember that.
yeah.
So anyway, that's the I guess the cornerstone of I think the biggest thing I've learned is keep it fun and keep it understandable.
Yeah.
So now, David, you've now been doing this for several months.
Yeah.
So I'm going to throw you on a spot this morning. So of the things that you've learned so far about teaching, and it could be about people too, it's fine. What's the biggest thing you've learned in your interaction with people that you've been here at the South Jersey Golf Schools?
Yeah, you made me think about it a little bit, but less is more for sure. When I first started, especially with the beginner golfers who never touched a golf club in their life, if you start telling them this and hinge here and go here, their brains are instantly lost, right?
Yeah.
Even if you start adding in, hey, when you finish your swing, your back foot should come up a little. There's too much going on in their brains. You gotta simplify it. You gotta dumb it down.
Yep.
I've had a lot of people say, I can only think of one thing at a time. Right? And I'm
that's
like,
kind of true, to be honest with you. Yeah.
and that's what I say. I go, okay, well then pick one thing, right? So if it's something in the setup, pick one thing so you set up with your hands in front of the ball. Then pick one thing to think about in the backswing. Like they get overwhelmed.
Yeah, and you've gotten the people that, what am I doing wrong? Like that person, and they want a list. And like I always come back with, no, well, let's start with what you're doing right.
Yeah.
And then they say, well, what about this? Like the keep, for the right-handed golfer, keep your left arm straight. Is my left arm straight enough? I'm like, well, it's a relative thing. I always tell the ones where I had a conversation with Andrew years ago, and he wanted to be a great teacher, and he said we started talking about fundamentals, right? And I think I've told this story before, but forgive me if I have. We were talking about fundamentals. He said, I want to teach fundamentals. I go, what's a fundamental? And he said, well, keeping your left arm straight. I'm like, nope, not a fundamental. He said, well, what do you mean? Yes, it is. No, it's not. So we went back and forth. I handed him my cell phone. I said, I'd like you to call Jack Nicklaus. And then I pulled out pictures, because I have a ton of pictures of different golf lessons. I pulled out a picture of Nicklaus in the mid-70s. His arm is slightly bent. And I'm like, yeah, you got to call Jack and tell him he's doing it wrong. Look, to me, fundamental is something that you have to do. Do I advocate keeping your left arm straight? Absolutely, 100% all day long. But does it have to be perfectly straight? No. And if it doesn't have to be, then it's not a fundamental, because you don't have to do it.
Yeah.
Right. So it gets great. So what you're saying, and we haven't even discussed this at all, but when someone asks me that, what my normal reaction is, well, from the time you get to the top of their backswing to the golf ball, is really less than like a quarter of a second. I'm like, list all the things you can do in a quarter of a second, and you can't. So it's your job, my job, is when you're working with somebody, identify the one greatest area of need and start there.
That's what I've learned.
Yeah. So I always start with the half a swing, right? Because people, how many? You've been doing this for months now. Okay. What would you like to work on today? The driver.
Yeah, I was going to say, number one.
The driver. Or the guy that comes for his first lesson, the first clue he pulls out, it's the driver. I'll tell you how
or
that.
I need more distance. That's 1 and 2. Other thing I've learned, keep it moving, is everyone learns differently, right? Some people are very calm and not worried about hitting it perfect. Some people want to hit it perfect every time.
Yeah.
It's about managing expectations, and I dealt with that. I'm sure everyone who's played golf a lot deals with that themselves. So I've learned, one of my favorite quotes, I think I learned it from you. Frustration occurs when expectations don't meet reality.
Yeah.
And that's a big one, because these guys who hit the range once every 2 weeks want to go out and shoot scratch golf. I go, your expectations and reality are way off here.
Yeah.
So it's about bridging that gap and saying, hey, you're not going to hit it exactly at the target you're aiming for every time, but aim small, miss small, man. Like there's ways to start getting closer to that.
No, I completely agree. I always tell people like when they come in and you know expectations, but someone comes out and work on the driver. I'm like, well, I compliment them. Well, you obviously work out, right? Oh, well, yeah, I work out, right? Like, so when you go into the gym, what you do is you walk over to the heaviest weight you can find and you lift that first, right? Well, no, of course I don't do that. I'm like, well, so then why are we starting with the driver? Because like, you know, if you know if you take driving lessons, driving lessons. Okay, all right, let's bring your car out on this Indy track and go 140 miles an hour. No, you have to have a solid foundation. And people, you get this all the time too, I'm sure, right? I kept my irons fine. I need to learn the driver swing. It's the same path, man. It's just like the irons just don't cut as much. So
and you have to kind of explain that because I think a lot of people just don't really understand. We had the ladies' night was driver last night, and you would have probably 90% of the ladies thought, well, the driver's got a big head. Mm-hmm. It should be the easiest to hit. Period. And you have it on the tee. Me and Richie had to explain multiple times. This is the longest, least loft, most spin. Like this is the hardest club.
Spin, yeah. Well, that's right. I know. I actually had a woman yesterday come in. She took group lessons a couple years ago. She came in and she's like, she's playing in outings now. Cause she's in sales, and she's like, I needed the driver farther. I'm like, she actually swung the club fairly well. It's just like it's not that simple. Like, most people slow down at impact. You let it go, let it go. Yes, I know. Well, good. All right, so let's do this. So, as former team captain of Rutgers, and coaching forever as I've been, let's do that. People. What have I learned from people in coaching? And you can turn into captain. I can tell you what I've learned about people, in my own estimation, is consistency in what you do, and consistency in your messaging, and never give up, right? So when this program, the first 10, 12 years I was here at Rutgers, we weren't very good. But they were also paying me some ridiculously, basically, when I first started this job a long time ago, you were basically the bus driver chauffeur, is basically what you were. I was a golf teaching pro, but for the amount that they were giving you, you just did the best with what you had. That's all you could do, because you couldn't pay, you could barely pay your electric bill with what they're paying, right? So they came to me 12 or 13 years in, and they said, we want your team to be good, and we're gonna fund this as a full-time position. And at that point, if you look at the school records, right around there, the team sort of meteorically, thank you, started becoming better. I started recruiting. I started doing more in this and that. But one of the things I said when I took the job was, I want the kids to play for something. And at that point, golf is similar to March Madness and basketball. In order to get an automatic bid to the national championship, you have to win an AQ, an automatic qualifier. So you need to have 7 or 8 teams in your conference to be that. Well, the NJAC, which is the conference that Rutgers in most sports, was not big enough in golf. They only had 3 or 4 golf teams. Gotcha. So I went to the athletic director, Jeff Dean. God bless him, he just passed away recently. Shout out to Jeff Dean and his family. I went and I said, do you mind if I try to find us a conference to play in golf? And he's like, well, Bobby, if you can do it, more power to you.
All right.
So I just start calling conference commissioners, which apparently is frowned upon typically, but I didn't know. Who would I know? So I finally called, and I ended up talking to the NEAC conference, the Northeast Atlantic Conference, and they had teams. And Aaron Barney and I, who was the assistant athletic director at Rutgers at the time, drove all the way up to upstate New York to meet with them and do our PowerPoint presentation and the whole 9 yards. And they took us. Nice. So from that point, and all you know is AQ conferences, right? Yeah. So we got into that because, you know what? If I'm going to take a job as a full-time position, I want it to represent something. I want it to mean something. So yeah, that's what I did. One thing I learned, and I could tell a million different stories, and hopefully I'll be doing this for a long time, of how that type of thinking. Don't ever tell me I can't do something. What do I need to do to get to where I need to be? And that's my recurring mantra. So all right, now as team captain, David, what have you learned, or what have you found about people, or about persistence that stands out most in your mind?
Yes. So different people are motivated differently. That's what I would say. Some people are very quick to hit that, I don't really care about this round anymore. And I've noticed through learning, and the best golfer I've seen never, ever, ever hit that point. Like the Patties of the world, the Sigs, even when I was a freshman, the example of them, really great golfers, but they will never, even if they hit their ball in the woods 3 times, whatever, the worst hole ever, they're locked in still. Maybe they'll do a little club drop, but by the time they get to their next shot, they're locked in again. There are other golfers who have potential to be really, really good, but can't necessarily keep that focused on. And we all used to say, keep grinding. Was that our thing? Grind it out.
Yeah, grind it for sure.
And I embraced that. As through my years, it's pouring rain on me, I'm going to grind even harder.
Yeah.
Where I think I've noticed there's some people, and hey, it could be maturity levels, it could be a bunch of different reasons, but they can kind of check out and say, I don't really care about this round anymore, or it's too windy today. I found the best golfers never ever make those excuses. We used to have that all the time. Don't want to hear them. What are they doing?
I don't want to hear it. No, I don't want to hear it. Why, who does? I mean.
Yeah, and embracing that, I think changed my golf game, changes the team dynamic.
Yeah.
Because the team's no longer entertaining these excuses.
Well, golf is a huge game of self-deprecation. Like a lot of, and I hate it. Like people, I got a recruit actually coming in a couple hours. Somebody say, there goes, that happened to me again. It only happens to me. That's the kind of guy I am. I always get the bad breaks. And I'm like, you know what? Yeah, no. Which leads us to our second quote of the day. I love this one. Problems are not stop signs. They're guidelines. Never stop learning. So, if you're running into problems, guess what? Everybody does. Right? I mean, it's, and I think I've used this before, but like in that movie Pretty Woman, like when Richard Gere turns to Julia Roberts and said, you could be so much more. And she basically says, well, the bad stuff is easier to believe. Sure is, right? That's why most people aren't successful, because when things start going wrong in so many different ways, they just give up, right? They say, well, I guess it just wasn't intended to be great. If you look at every obstacle that you come across, or all the problems you've come across, and say, this is a problem to solve, right? Then you move forward. And it's easy to say, and it's easy to preach, okay? But I'm guilty of it, and everybody is. When you start getting segmented into too many different things, it becomes difficult to stay in channel. So, what we try to do here at the Breakfast Ball and at the golf schools is each week. What do we start with, David? What do we start with each week?
Well, quote of the day, and then one thing.
One thing. I have a quote at the top of the page every week, and then we start with the one thing. And if we go too many weeks without getting the one thing done, Coach gets frustrated. I start getting upset, and then I retool myself too. Though, like we're working on a prototype of something right now to bring to market for golf training, and that had been on the list probably for several months. I bought the pieces for it. I bought the solvent for it. It was back ordered, and I all this kind of stuff that it finally came in about 2.5-3 weeks ago, and it still didn't get done. But then I stayed up the other night until like 1:30, 2 o'clock in the morning. Making sure it got done. So now I'm looking for a patent lawyer. So if anybody out there is a patent lawyer, wants to help me out, contact me through the Breakfast Ball or the South Jersey Golf School.
We'll give them 5%.
You said I didn't say that. Anyway, never stop learning, never stop grinding. But again, if you like what we're doing, guys, please subscribe. We're still new to this. We're just like 6 months in. If you have feedback, we would love to hear it. Try to keep it positive.
Yeah, if you made it this far, you guys are like our top 10% of listeners. So give us a like, give us a subscribe, we'll keep it going.
Yeah, I think we're pushing like 120 something thousand views in like 10 countries or something like that. Yeah. So it's pretty damn cool. We also have merch. It goes up and down. It gives us 2 weeks on, 2 weeks off. So if you want merch and you're having difficulty with it, just send us an email. I'll get right to it. But we're definitely still doing merchandise for the Breakfast Ball and the South Jersey Golf School.
I saw JoJo wearing it. It's really nice fabric.
Yeah,
really
yeah.
Nice material.
He bought a bunch of stuff, JoJo.
Yeah.
We love JoJo. Anyway, that's all I got for this week. David, you have anything interesting or exciting? Any announcements?
No,
nothing.
Nothing
earth
comes
shattering.
to mind.
I was going to put you on the spot, but I'm not
I
going to.
want the Mavs to win. You care.
I
don't
the
like
Knicks
the
got
Celtics.
knocked out. Yeah, I don't like the Celtics. Once the Knicks, well, especially because they got Porzingis.
Yeah.
Like former Knick. I don't know. He had to leave New York because he and his brother were malcontents. So.
Okay.
His brother was trying to renegotiate his contracts, and he wasn't. Anyway, we'll leave that alone. Okay. Anyway, folks, thank you for watching. And like I said, if you get something out of our show, 10% when you're rich and famous. All right. Have a great day, folks. See you next time.
Glass of bourbon hard. My bourbon hard. My bourbon hard. Alcohol. Because no great story ever started with I'll have a salad.